She lost her face, she lost her daughter, she lost her mother.
Yeah, that's true.
And all of that sort of flowed into a mighty river.
Well, my mother told me once, she said pain can either make you very cold and hard and insensitive, or it can make you very sensitive to the feelings of others. And I never forgot that. And it seems to me that pain can destroy you, but if you can survive it, you're going to be better for it. That doesn't necessarily justify it. I mean, it's too dangerous a teacher for that to justify.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to be comparing and contrasting Season 1, Episode 4 of AMC's Interview with the Vampire to its original book. The episode's name is A Vile Hunger for a Hammering Heart. Now, let's sink our teeth right into the neck of it. Act 1. Anne Frank meets Stephen King. Claudia's resentment for humanity is at its full capacity. Visibly, the house is cold as Louis is pondering the depths of Claudia's despair. Lestat plays the piano somberly as he watches his lover slip back into his own sadness. Sick of the worrisome flooding through Louis, Lestat struts to Claudia's room dramatically, rips the top of her coffin open, and looks back and says, "See, she's not here," then picks up her journal. Louis protests like any good father might. Lestat pretends the words that slipped out of Louis's mouth was just a breeze in the wind, then begins to read her journals out loud. We then see an update on Claudia as she hovers over an old man on the brink of death. When she returns to the Rue Royale, she tries to sneak in like a teenager, sliding into bed only to find their mom laying still on the other side, ready to confront her. Which is exactly what happens, and imagine Lestat as that mother. She tries to run away, but like the two fathers, they planned their attack, and Louis is barricading the door. Lestat holds Claudia's journal, and devastated that they read it, they're upset more about where she's keeping the bodies. She reveals that they're buried somewhere outside of town, but to their horror, the burials are in an area that floods easily, meaning the bodies will be revealed in the next storm. Louis and Lestat would meet with Alderman in a speakeasy. This is when their worst nightmare comes to life. The bodies washed up. Alderman mentions that the bodies have random body parts missing, from fingers to limbs to breasts. Just gruesome. To their horror, once they return back to the Rue Royale, the police are there to greet them, with Claudia sitting on the couch, looking kinda drunk, or sadistically entertained by all of this. The cops turn to search the premises. Claudia frantically runs to her bedroom, and this is when we see her hidden items. A finger here, a toe there, a half-deceased man in the wardrobe. You know, normal things inside of a teenage girl's room. I'm kidding. They're barely able to get the cops out of the house without too much of an issue. They would then call a family meeting over Claudia's found trophies, and this is when Lestat has had it, and he has full-blown resentment for Claudia coming to surface. He would say really vile things. Louis and Lestat argue over her, and Claudia once again mentions her desire to have a partner. Lestat is just over it, and he says this rather brutal line.
"You're not my type. I like a full of
Stop.
She's being impossible."
While she pours her heart out over her loneliness. Revealing that she has tried to make a vampire partner of her own, she begins to threaten them to make her a partner, or else she's gonna go out on her own and find more vampires. Lestat says she was a mistake, and I was mistaken that this is the episode that Claudia mentions following Lestat, hence why she knows about Antoinette. Claudia runs to pack her things as she's leaving them. Louis stands there heartbroken, speechless, as she walks out the door not knowing when she would be back. Claudia can't run away in the books. She's too small to even try to live on her own. Louis mentions that there was no way for her to go, and it's the same way that Lestat and him have nowhere to go in fear of loneliness. Instead, she leaves at night all alone, killing people on her own accord. She would kill the servants, a mother and daughter. The husband of the mother and child would come to Louis and Lestat, searching for them, concerned for his family. Lestat and Louis would find their bodies huddled together in a small brick building located on the property, masked by the smell of honeysuckle. Louis would say that the smell was that of a graveyard. Due to killing too close to home, Louis would burn the bodies of the mother and daughter, and Lestat would kill the father and son. Since the father and son had been drinking wine, Lestat is a little drunk from the blood. As they wait for Claudia to return home, Lestat is very upset at the fact that she's killing recklessly and drawing more suspicion, telling Louis he needs to control Claudia. Louis would bite back and say that Lestat never taught her how to cover for herself, and that she can't be controlled. She sees herself as equal to both Louis and Lestat. She would return to the Rue Royale with a bouquet of chrysanthemums. This is when she would confront both Louis and Lestat on how she became the way she is. She wants to know how to change another mortal and make another vampire for herself. Lestat and Claudia would argue over his power and how he refuses to educate her and Louis on the world of vampires. Act 2, Claudia leaves. After Claudia leaves to find more vampires and educate herself on the legends to see where they might be, Louis would desperately call to her every night in hopes of a response, as she would ignore him. She would frequent the university libraries. And remember, this is still Jim Crow, so Claudia, being obviously an African American in this adaptation, she's stopped by this jockey boy as he asks her why she's there. And this is when icky, nasty-ass Bruce comes into the picture. They would read each other's minds, and she would go with him. They would go to sit by a campfire and get to know each other. As we all agree, Bruce is garbage. We hate Bruce. He does some Andrew Tate trash by telling her she needs to learn manners, shows her an etiquette book, and he begins to show his true colors. Then, he would unfortunately assault her. I'm not going to go too far into nasty-ass Dusty Bruce, and neither will Louis with Daniel. Daniel would hone in on what happened to Claudia, and just like me, Louis refuses to tell her as parts of her journal are missing regarding Bruce. Since Daniel won't drop the subject, Louis makes his Parkinson's go out of control, making him shake uncontrollably. When Louis is done with this, Daniel's spasms cease, Daniel stands up, and he does this.
If you are
Though this scene was funny, and what Louis did was kind of wrong, I'm on Louis' side. Daniel should have dropped the subject and moved on. Like I am. Louis is obviously distraught with Claudia's absence, and the house becomes hoarded, dirty, and even more sterile. Lestat is trying to get Louis to forget about her, to let her go, but Louis just can't. 7 years would go by, and they end up just living this way. Lestat would give warning that with the neglect of Louis' affections, he would be forced to look for affection somewhere else. Louis doesn't hear any of this as he reads rigorously the newspapers, trying to find clues on where Claudia is. The home is in turmoil while Claudia is gone. Claudia, as mentioned, cannot go anywhere, but she would leave during the night. Louis would worry, and so would Lestat. Honestly, I think they worry for different reasons. Louis worries for her well-being but knows she'll be fine. He's more so in agony of her coldness towards him, while Lestat worries that she won't do anything stupid to stir more suspicion. Lestat would plead to Louis to talk to her, to control her, to get her to talk to him. And when she is home, she would ignore Lestat and immerse herself in books on the occult, witches, witchcrafts, myths, and legends. She wants answers and is mad that Lestat won't divulge any information on their kind to her or Louis. Louis would tell Claudia that he needs her. He cannot bear to lose her. That she is his only true companion in immortality. Act 3. Claudia returns and the fight. After years of Claudia's absence, she would return one night. One of the reasons for her return is due to her following Louis around. she would see him with his last encounter with his sister Gracie at the cemetery. Gracie would call Louis to meet, and he's greeted with his own gravesite. Gracie tells Louis that this is just how it has to be, that her family and her are moving up north for better opportunities for work. Claudia would see Louis break down and cry, and this is when she would realize that one of the reasons they made her was to give Louis a sister. When she would walk through the doors of the Rue Royale, her and Louis would immediately embrace. Claudia makes an attempt to apologize to Lestat, and Lestat being Lestat would say,
Apology not accepted.
She would tell them that she has done research on where to find vampires and that they should go searching for them. Lestat is done with this conversation. Claudia, not happy with this response, would speak to Louis telepathically one-on-one and beg him to go with her, that Lestat is keeping them as slaves to control, that he doesn't actually love them. Lestat realizes what she's doing and goes off on Louis saying this.
The nights of sulking and the first sight of her?
He would then attack Claudia. This action alone would spark rage from Louis, and the fight ensues. I'm not going to insert too many graphic clips from the fight, as I know this is quite triggering. I will touch on the topic of the argument briefly, just to have some context for the episode. Louis and Lestat would argue over Claudia, over Lestat's love for Louis and feeling abandoned. Lestat would snap and pull Louis out of the house as Claudia is running after them begging Lestat to let Louis go. Lestat would take off into the air, and this is when both of them realized that Lestat could fly. While in the air, Lestat would furiously beg Louis to tell him he's never going to love him back. Louis doesn't say it. He only says,
Call me.
and that's when Lestat figuratively and literally lets him go. Once Louis hits the ground, Claudia is there. Lestat hovers over the two of them with black eyes. Lestat and Claudia stare each other down, and we see the disdain and the hatred that Claudia now has for Lestat. Beforehand, it was just annoyance. Now, it's turned into loathing, whereas Lestat looks to have the same emotions for Claudia as she does for him. He then flies away, and the episode ends. In the book, this never happens. Yes, the two of them would fight and argue, but it isn't to this extent. The show drew in all the drama. Claudia would express her hatred for Lestat with his reluctance to show them anything about themselves. Claudia would ignore Lestat and think very low of him, and Lestat would blame Louis for poisoning her against him, but he would not lay his hands on Claudia, which would incite this fight in the show. Claudia plays more mind games, and Lestat would show his frustrations. That's about it. Claudia does show her hatred towards the two of them. She does say, I hate you both. But to the extent in the show, that fight never happens. To conclude, this episode is a hard watch. We see Louis' desperation for Claudia to come home, the crumbling of Lestat and Louis' relationship. The fight scene was intense. I have mixed feelings for the portrayal. On one hand, one could say that they went too far with this, while on the other hand, one could say that, though it was uncomfortable to watch, it made you hate Lestat instantly, based on what we saw, while at the same time having pity for the heartbroken devil on our screen. The final act of the show entices all of our emotions, bringing more depth to the dynamic of the household, how things moving forward will never be the same, and how Claudia's hatred for Lestat is now deep-rooted and justified. And I'm nervous and excited to dive deeper into the upcoming episodes as we draw closer to the end of Season 1. If you've made it this far, thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. But before you go, do you think the final act was too much? Do you think this was a traumatically good addition / change to our characters to draw in our heartstrings? Leave your thoughts down below. Take care of yourselves. Till next time.